Alright, what is up, guys? So in this episode here, we're going to be working on authentication. Alright, we're going to be setting up the hash passwords. We're going to check the user, make sure there isn't no email in the database already. We're going to be doing all that stuff, middlewares, all that stuff. Well, only one middleware, but we're going to be doing all of that stuff in this episode, okay? So let's get started. I got everything set up. I got my server running. No, don't do that. I got my server running on the back end. I got MongoDB. I'm already logged in. Got GraphQL pulled up. Alright, so the first thing we're going to work on is the create user. Okay, we're going to implement this to checking to make sure there is no emails already in our database, that we got everything covered. Alright, so let's get started with that. So the first thing we got to do is we have to check and see. Like I said, we have to check and see if the user, if the email that we put in is going to be the same email as in the database. Okay, so we don't want that, so we got to check it, right? So we'll do const find user, because that's what we're doing. It's going to be equal to await user dot find. I'm gonna go by find one. Okay, we're just we're finding by one condition. Okay, the condition is if the email of that document matches our user input email that we put in there. Okay, now if there is a user in the database already with that email, we're going to return an error. Okay, return new error that says user already exists. Okay, so you don't want to find another email in there because you're supposed to be registering, so it's supposed to be no email of that sort. So if you do find an email, user already exists, right? Now if you don't find no email, then you can create that user. Okay, that user is not in our system, which is good. So what we're gonna do is, before we save that user, we gotta hash the password, right? So we're gonna need Bcrypt for that. So I did not install it. So let me install it. So we're gonna be in our EverNote folder. And then we're gonna do yarn add Bcrypt. I think I spelled that right. RYJS. Okay, so we're gonna add that. Okay. So after we get done adding that, we're gonna clear that out real quick. We got Bcrypt, so we're gonna need to import that here. Crypt.js acquire Bcrypt.js. I can actually just call it Bcrypt. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna store this hash password in a variable called hashed password. Hashed password equal to bcrypt.hash. Okay, now this is a function, right? So the parameters of this is what is the password that you're trying to hash. Okay, so what is the string that you're trying to hash? We're trying to hash the incoming password that the user put in. So we're going to say user input password. Word. Okay. The second parameter is the salt, basically how long do you want the decoded password to be. The longer, the greater the number is, the better the security, because it takes a while for someone to try to, hack in and try to decode your hash. So if it's longer, then it's greater, okay? The greater security, like I said. So we're going to do 12, all right? So actually we need to do, without putting a weight there, it's a promise. But if I put a weight, it grabs that, it grabs the whole string, and it gets it done for us. So now that we got the hash password right here stored in this variable, we have to create the user and now store that hash password as our password. Okay? So once we get done doing all of that, the password is hashed, we should be good to go. Now we gotta save this user. Const result, yeah. So it saves it right here. I didn't have to change that part. We stored it in a result, and we're just gonna return that document. We just stored, this is a document that it saved, and now we're gonna return the document, okay? So let's test this out and see if it works, okay? Oh crap. Let me make this bigger so we can actually see what's going on here. Alright, so if we go to our mutation here and then try to create a user again, create another one. Let's, like that, with a username of Billy or something. And then, I hate when it does that. And then the email can be billy@mail.com. Password, which is going to be hashed. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we should get a hash password if we did this correctly. And what we want to grab back is the ID of the user that we just created and their email. Okay, that's the data we want to get back. So let's see if this works. Boom chakalaka. Okay, now if I was to do that again to get the password, it's going to create the same user, but I forgot to put the password in there. User already exists. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so we try to create the user again, and it says user already exists, which is good. Okay, so let's create another one and see that password hashed. Okay, I should have queried for that one in the first place. Let's see, James. And then we'll say James. Yeah, the same password. Okay, so the password should be hashed this time. Boom. Okay, that's the hash password. Now, I've been reading that getting back the password is not the best. Well, it's not the safest thing, because if you're returning the data, you can return the data without the password to be like really on the safe side, even though when you return the password it's going to be encrypted anyway. But to be on like the double safe side, don't return the password, because you're really not going to be using the password data when you go create a user on the front end and then you get data back from it. You're not going to use the password anyway, so we don't have to return that. It's getting saved in our database, of course, but we don't have to return that data to us. So we can do password. This is the password field, and we're going to set that, we're going to override it and set it to null. Okay, so we'll get everything else but the password. Okay, so we don't need the password in there. So I've heard. So if I go ahead and refresh this, of course if I try to create this user again, it's gonna say user already exists. So let me try one more user, and then we will be all set with this create user. Okay, so the password should be null. Okay, we shouldn't get the password back. There we go. So we got all the things that we do need but the password, and we'll get the username, of course, too. Okay, so the create user functionality is working. Let me go ahead and do the rundown of what just happened here. So what we did was we searched our database. Before we did anything, we searched our database to find if there was an email in the system that matches our email that we put in. Okay. Now, if there is already email in there, we go ahead and throw that error saying user already exists. But if there isn't no email in there, that means we can add a user. And before we add a user, we had to hash the password so the password can be encrypted. We use that using Bcrypt. Okay. And then we created the user and then stored the hash password in our password field, which is good. We saved that user. Okay. It's saved in the result, which is the document of the user, basically. So, and then the last thing we did was return that whole document, except for the password. Okay. So that's what we had to do in the user. So the user is pretty much all set. Okay. The next thing we gotta do is that we gotta work on the login, because you know there's a sign up and then there's a login, right? So now we have to work on the login. And then once we get that functionality going, then we'll jump into I think it's Middlewares, I believe. Yeah, I think it's Middlewares after that. So let's go ahead and get the users one started, okay? A login resolver. We're gonna add a login resolver actually down here because it's related to users and whatnot. So we're gonna add a login resolver right here, right? Sync. And then what we're going to do here is a little bit different from what we did here. So in our schema, you know how we specified a mutation for the create user? We don't have to do a mutation of login, because that's actually going to be a query. So if we query for a login and then pass in the email and the password, that's going to return some data by itself. So we don't have to make a whole separate mutation. We can actually make a GET request for the login and then pass in the data like that. And then it will return us some data. It will still return the data because it's a GET request, so it returns data, right? So we don't have to use a separate mutation for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a login query. It's going to have the parameters of email, which is a string, and password, which is a string. Okay? And what this login returns is, this might seem confusing, auth data. Okay? So when we log in, we put in the email and the password. It's going to run our login resolver. And what our login resolver is going to do is going to check the database for that email and then run a confirm on the passwords. Basically, compare the passwords, and then if they do match, it's going to return the auth data. Now the auth data we have to specify here. Okay. Now the auth data. Now if you look at it at a front end perspective, when we run this login and pass in the data, is going to give us back the basically the token of that user, the user ID, and the username, I believe. Yeah, let me check my notes. Yeah, I believe so. Okay, so ID, email, and username. Alright, so that might seem a little confusing, but it's all going to make sense in a second. So we'll do type. Oh, wait. Type auth data the user ID, ID is going to be type ID. Okay, it's going to be an ID. And then we'll say the user username could be a string, and then the token, which is like the most important one. The token is going to be a string. I want to pass in the email. Email is going to be a string. Yeah, okay. So when we log in, you want to query a get query. Now you have to pass these parameters in there, right? So most likely on our front end, it's going to be whatever our login input is. The value of our input is going to go there. The value of our password input is going to go there. And then it's going to run our login resolver, check for the email, compare the passwords. If they match, then we're all good. It's going to log us in, and it's going to return our auth data. And our auth data is going to have an object with our user ID, the username that we now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think our login doesn't have a username. Most likely it'll probably just have our password. I mean our email. It's gonna return the email that we used to log in, return the token, and our user ID. Okay? So let's go ahead and run that, right? So for the login resolver, we're going to grab our email and our password. We're destructuring it, so we're grabbing it straight from here, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to handle this, right? So the first thing we're going to do is check and see if the email that we logged in with is in the database. So try and then catch. I'm gonna do const find can we use the same thing? Find user. Hope that doesn't conflict. I really hope not. Okay, find user. We're gonna look in our user dot find, and we're gonna find by one condition, and that condition is gonna be if the email in that database is the same one as the email that we typed in. Since we destructured it, it's the same thing, okay? Make sure to put a wait here. Right? And then that's going to give us a document, okay? Now we'll say if there isn't an email in our database, what we're going to do is we're going to return new error. We're going to say user not found. We could say we don't want to be specific on what they got wrong, so we don't want to say like password not match or anything like that. We just say user not found. Okay. We don't want to get too general, because then they'll give them a hint on what we got wrong. Alright. So if we didn't find the email, the user is not found. But if we did find the email, that's the same email, which is good. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna compare the passwords to that email that we found. Okay, so we'll say let's say const matched password is equal to Bcrypt dot compare. Okay, and then what we want to compare is our password that we typed in, right? So compare our password that we type in. Now you have to compare it to what hashed password. And the hashed password is going to be the password that's in the database. Okay, so compare our password with the password that's in the database. So we'll do password like that, right? That's a promise, so we have to put a wait here. Wait. Okay, then now that's a Boolean, right? So then if we scroll down here, what we gotta do now, if they don't match, we're gonna run that error again, saying that the user is not found. Not that the passwords didn't match, but just the user is not found. Okay. User not found. However, if they do match and we're all good, what we want to do is we want to, I think, create a token at this point. Yeah, we want to create a token for this user. So then we have to install JSON Web Token because we got to create a token for this person to use to log in. So let's go here and do yarn add JSON Web Token, all one word. Make sure I spelled it right. We're going to add that in there. Okay, we got that added. So now we're going to bring that in. JWT, as everyone calls it. Come on, keep spelling require wrong. JSON Web Token, there we go. So passwords match, and then we're going to create a token for that user. So we say jwt.sign. Basically, at this point, you want to pass in the data that you want to use for this token to sign the user in. So it's going to be an object of the data that I want to use. So I want to use the same data I specified in the auth data. So I want to use this data, okay? And we're also going to return this data as well. So I want to use this data and return it. So the user ID, I think that's what I called it, user ID, yeah, is going to be the find user dot underscore ID. No, underscore ID. So the user ID is going to be that user that we find, their document ID, okay? Now, the username, I think that's what's next. No, the token in the email, okay. So the token, okay, I think I did this a little backwards. Oh, okay. This is what I did backwards. Token is equal to this right here. Okay. I believe I don't specify the token here. And the email is going to be the find user.email. No, I put it in the wrong field. It's supposed to be up here, I believe. Okay, this is the data I want to pass back to the token. That's what that is, okay? Okay, so I messed up there. Sorry about that. This is the data I want to pass into the token. That way, when I get this token, this is the data that is going to be given back to me if the token is verified, okay? So this is the data I'm passing to it, all right? The user ID and the email. Yeah, that's good enough. And then you have to use a secret for it. So we'll just make up one right now. I'll call it powerful secret. Secret. There we go. Okay. Make sure I got this word wrap on. Okay, so that's our token, and that's the data we pass into the token. Now the last thing we want to do is return the auth data. If everything went well and the passwords match, we create the token and pass in our auth data. Okay. Now our auth data has to match this. Alright. So we'll say return an object that has our user ID, which is the one we specify in the auth data. That's going to be our find user dot underscore ID. Our email is going to be the find user dot email. Okay. I'm referencing this because if we do find a user, then it's good. So the user that we signed up with, their email is going to be the email that they find. And then the token is going to be this token right here. Okay. So this is the auth data that we're returning back to us. Alright, just like we specified. When we log in, we log in and everything's good, it returns us this auth data. Okay, that's what it returns to us. And then of course the catch will have the error. And what we're going to do is we're going to throw the error. Alright. That looks good. So if we was to try to log in, okay, so if we was to try to log in, let's test this out now. So we're gonna log in. Gotta refresh this, of course. Oh yeah, it's not a mutation. I forgot, you're querying it. So log in, right? And our login has the email and the passwords. So okay. So what we can do is just exit out this, exit out that. Alright, so let's say we're querying for our login. Our email is the email that we typed in. Our password is the password we typed in. We should get back our auth data if it matches in the database, okay? I think this user we created in the database, if I'm not mistaken. Let's look at the users. Let me refresh this. I think I created Mary, didn't I? Yeah, I did create Mary. Where's Mary? Mary, okay, there she is. So she's in the database, okay? and that's the correct password. So if everything goes well, I should get back the user ID and the token of Mary. Okay, so this should go through. Let's see. User not found. And I know Mary's in there. Let's see. Let's see, find user, email, for secret, and then the token, email, and password. Let me refresh this real quick. Still saying user not found. Let me see. So if we log in, not the email, error, do the password, compare the password, which is our password, with the hashed our password. Oh, that's what I did. Compare our password with our password. Okay, wait, I think I did the compare password part wrong. Hold on, let me see. Oh, crap. String, which is hold on, let me see. Let's do it again. Compare. Oh, okay. So our password with the database password. So find user dot password, I believe. Yeah, I think that's where I got it mixed up at. So we're comparing the password that we pass in with our database password. Okay, so let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so we get back this user because it went through, the passwords matched, and we created a token for them. Token, if I was to do, I think I got the email too, right? Yeah, the email. It gives us back the email. It gives it back all the auth data that we specified that we want to get back. Okay, so that works. So if we was to do like 1, 2, 3, 4, it should throw us a user not found. Okay, because the passwords don't match. There we go, user not found. Okay, so that is working. I actually think I'm going to end it right there, and then in the next episode we'll start working on the middleware. And I believe after we get the middleware going in putting the middleware on the routes that we need, after that I think we're pretty much done with the back end. And I think further episodes on we'll be working on the front end, React, and all that good stuff. Okay, but I am going to end it right here, and I will make another video for the middleware. I don't want this video to get too long. Alright, so that's my plan for the next episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you guys in the next one.